Hello friends, welcome to Manifest IAS. This is Karan Jots. So today we'll be taking up agriculture as a topic for UPSC prelims, and we'll be discussing what are the important events and what are the important policies and programs which happened from June till now. Now coming to today's lecture, we'll be discussing about important concepts such as buffer stocks, FPOs, about Kisan credit cards, about Kusum scheme. So these are basically the programs and policies which were announced in the recent past. Then we'll be discussing about livestock, which is through National Animal Disease Control Program. Then importantly, we'll be talking about the pricing of agriculture, especially the products such as MSP, etc. under 7 and 8, which is Price Stabilization Fund and PM Asha. Lastly, we'll be discussing about the important structural policy changes which have been announced by the center, which is through Model Land Leasing Act, contract farming, PM Kisan, PM Fasal Bima Yojana, innovation, research, seeds, etc. Now coming to the first topic for today, which is buffer stocks.
Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.
Now buffer stock is, as we know, buffer stock is carried by FCI, and usually we say it is used for emergency purpose or for PDS purpose. So what exactly is buffer stock? So first of all, the concept of buffer stock was introduced during the fourth 5-year plan. So 1969 to 74. So this is important because in 1967 we had Green Revolution. Until Green Revolution we had serious crisis. We were dependent on USF under PL 480 agreement. So after fourth plan, we thought of self-sufficiency. See, again, word is important. Self-sufficiency in food supply. So therefore, this concept of buffer stock came in fourth 5-year plan. Now, what are the objectives of buffer stock? So first is food security. Second is your targeted PDS. So therefore, what we said about ration shops. Third, emergency in case of war or drought or something. And fourth is price stabilization. That means if the prices in market are too high, buffer stocks can be used for cooling down the prices. Now, food security is also given in your 9th class NCERT, which is your last chapter, which is nothing but availability, affordability, and accessibility to food. Now, what is this about? So, the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs fixes the minimum buffer stock norms on 1st April, 1st July, 1st October and 1st January. So every quarter we decide how much should be the buffer stock of wheat and rice to maintain the above 4 objectives. Now, on 15 December 2015, it was decided by the government to create a buffer stock of pulses also. So therefore, traditionally we had wheat and rice, but now pulses have been added to buffer stock to control fluctuation of prices of pulses. And lastly, in addition to buffer norms, Government of India has a strategic reserve of 30 lakh tons of wheat and 20 lakh tons of rice with effect from 2008 and 2009. This is because seeing the changing nature of the monsoon, the climate change effects, the delayed monsoons and price fluctuations in agriculture, there was a need for strategic reserves for maintaining the buffer stocks. So what are these norms on 1st April, 1st July, 1st October and 1st January, as we have discussed in the third point here? So these are for rice, we have operational stocks, strategic reserves and the total stocks which needs to be maintained as form of buffer stocks. So on 1st April, as we can see, for rice we have 115 tons plus 20 tons of strategic reserve. So total for wheat and rice including is 210,000 to 210 million metric tons. So same in July, October and January, depending on the seasons and the output of that year. Now coming to second important concept, which is farmer producer organizations. Now in India, SHG model was a very successful model where groups of people were organized together to generate income, to generate support, credit, etc. The same principle is here because we know that 86% of the farmers in India are small and marginal farmers. So to help them, a concept of food aggregators or farmer producer organization was formed where 100 or so farmers can pool together their land, their resources for better output. So let's see what is this about. This is not only on production side, but also on supply side, marketing side, etc. So first of all, a FPO or a producer organization is a legal entity formed by primary producers. That means it can be by farmers, milk producers, fishermen, weavers, rural artisans, craftsmen, etc. So the main aim of PO is to ensure better income, as we discussed, SHG model for better income. So same way, producer organizations for better income for producers through their networks. Lastly, Small Farmers Agribusiness Consortiums or FSAC and NABARD is providing support to promotion of FPOs. So who all are involved? NABARD and SFAC. So maybe in prelims you will get confused that is it only NABARD or is it Small Farmers Agribusiness Consortium as well. So as we can see from this slide, it is both of the above. Then lastly, Indian agriculture is dominated by marginal small farmers as we discussed. So therefore there's a disadvantage in terms of scale. So when the FPO provides a platform for scaling up small and marginal farmers. The next pillar is Kisan Credit Card. So this is an important pillar because the main problem for small and marginal farmers is agriculture credit, and they have to depend on non-institutional sources which are often exploitative in nature. So therefore Kisan Credit Card scheme was launched to provide timely and adequate farmer credit. So this is very important, timely and adequate farmer credit to meet their needs for cultivation, contingency, etc. Secondly, KCC is also a ATM cum debit card. So therefore, you don't need to go to the bank repeatedly for pleading for a loan. You can simply take your KCC card, and you might have seen in SBI ATMs that there's an option also for KCC. So therefore, you can directly withdraw money from your any ATM. You can use it as a debit card or credit card, mostly as a debit card, because see, this is a credit card. 1 lakh would be your limit, so you will be using it as a loan. So you can swipe it as a normal credit or debit card on any point of sale terminals. So who can avail the Kisan Credit Card scheme? So this is very important. See, first is what it is. Second is who is it for? So first of all, it is for farmers. Tenant farmers are also included, self-help groups, household consumption up to 10% of your KCC limit, because as we know, farmers are dependent on not only their income, they need some extra support as well. Lastly, there has been some current affairs, that is dairy and fisheries. That means livestock farmers and fisheries have been included or has to be covered by KCC scheme. And lastly, KCC scheme is also instrumental in implementation of interest subvention scheme for farmers, where they get 4% subsidy for timely repayment of loans. Now coming to the next pillar, which is in line with sustainable development in India, which is about zero budget natural farming. So what is this about? First of all, it's a set of farming methods and also a grassroots present movement which has spread to various states in India. The word budget here means credit and expenses. Thus zero budget means that farmers do not need to go for heavy credit and heavy expenses. So without spending any money on purchase inputs, they can go ahead with farming. So you can use concepts like farm saved seeds, farm saved manure, etc. So natural farming means farming with nature and without chemicals. So that's why we discuss it is a sustainable agriculture practice. Lastly, the method works along with natural biodiversity of each farmed area. So the concept here is, as a forest grows naturally, the agriculture can also support itself in a natural format. So therefore it takes particular ecosystem into practice and also matches the products according to the ecosystem. So particular ecosystem will thrive along with food plants. So what are the features? First of all, commercial level farming can be done in almost zero budget only by using locally available and farm based resources. So the important feature of this is it is not only for sustenance, it is also for commercial level farming. Secondly, according to the zero budget natural farming principles, plants get 98% of their supply of nutrients from the air, water and sunlight, and remaining 2% is done by the quality of the soil itself and friendly microorganisms. So here friendly microorganisms are important because when we use pesticide, insecticide, these friendly microorganisms do not remain because the pesticides tend to kill all the microorganisms altogether, whether they are friendly or harmful for the plants. Now, soil is always supposed to be covered with organic mulch, which creates humus and encourages growth of friendly microorganisms. So the emphasis here is friendly nature of the microorganisms present in nature and also the support given by air, water and sunlight. So the system requires cow dung, cow urine obtained from Indian breed cows only. So Desi cow is apparently the purest because the other one will be having some form of invasiveness, or what we say, some form of difference from the environment which is being used for the farming methods. Lastly, a farm-made bioculture named Jivamrutha is added to the soil instead of any fertilizer to improve microflora of the soil. So therefore it is supporting the friendly microorganisms. And natural farm-made pesticides like Dashparniak, Neem Astra are used to control pests and diseases. So therefore this is for multi-cropping is also encouraged. So as we discussed, it is done at a commercial level, not only at a subsistence level. Now coming to the next pillar, which is Kusum scheme. So Kusum scheme stands for Kisan Urja Suraksha Evam Utthan Mahabhiyan, is a farmer oriented solar power scheme. So this is for grid connected and off grid solar pumps. It also helps in boosting farmers' income when the land is fallow. So what does it comprise? It has three components. First is 10,000 megawatt of decentralized ground stilt mounted grid connected solar power plants. So that is for if they have the land fallow, they can come up with solar plants on the soil. And also it talks about standalone solar agriculture pumps. It also talks about grid connected agriculture pumps being converted into solar pumps. And lastly, it forms a subsidy, 30% center and 30% state, plus bank loans of 30% if somebody is interested in this scheme. So therefore this is a step for post sustainable development and also in doubling farmers' income. Now coming to livestock. So in livestock, the important pillar is National Animal Disease Control Program. So because of this disease, the output was less and the production and contribution of GDP gets affected by livestock sector. So under this, the main thing is about FMD, which is foot and mouth disease, and brucellosis in livestock. So what is it about? So we have to eradicate these diseases. So the aim is to vaccinate over 500 million livestock heads, including cattle, buffalo, sheep, goats, pigs, against foot and mouth disease. So this has been done to 36 million female bovine calves annually against brucellosis as well. So program has received 100% funding from the center. So it's important that it is all 100% financed by the center until 2024. And lastly, the NADCP, which is National Animal Disease Control Program, aims to control these two diseases by 2025 and eradicate them by 2030. So eradication by 2030 and control them by 2025, 100% funding from the center. So these are the important points under National Animal Disease Control Program. So let's look at what is this FMD or what is foot and mouth disease. So it's a highly infectious viral disease of the livestock. It is generally not fatal in adult animals, but leave them severely weakened. So it results in drastically reduced production of milk. So that is what we also talked about, that there's a loss of GDP or loss of income of farmers because of drastically reduction of production of milk. So it spreads through excretions, secretions. Infected animals also exhale the virus. So the endemic is where? It's in Asia, Africa, Middle East. So, and if we see developed countries, which is Australia, New Zealand, Indonesia, Central, North and Latin America, Europe, have already become FMD free. Now if we talk about brucellosis, so this is a zoonotic disease. Again, this is also important. Brucellosis is a zoonotic disease, whereas FMD is a viral disease. So it is endemic in most parts of the country. So it causes early abortions. So there is problem of productivity or future sustainability of livestock as a farming method because of early abortion in animals because of brucellosis. Now coming to the next pillar, which is very important, which is about price stability or income support or income stability for the farmer. So under that, the first scheme is Price Stabilization Fund. Under this, it was set up in 2014-15 by Department of Agriculture Cooperation and Farmers Welfare, but it was later transferred to Department of Consumer Affairs. So it is also very important. It is not under Ministry of Agriculture. It is part of Department of Consumer Affairs. Lastly, it was set up to help the regulate the price volatility. Important, especially onion, potato and pulses. So this is also important. Price Stabilization Fund covers onion, potatoes and pulses as well. So the scheme provides for maintaining a strategic buffer to moderate price volatility. So that's why we talked about buffer stock for pulses, onions, etc. to maintain price stability. Lastly, it talks about building such stock to promote schemes like direct purchases from farmers associations at farm gates or mandis to maintain strategic buffers. The PSF or Price Stabilization Fund is utilized for granting interest-free advance of working capital to central agencies such as FCI or NAFED or etc. to undertake market intervention operation, which is intervention here is buying and selling according to the need. For example, they'll buy it when there is distress sale by the farmer, and they'll issue the product or onion or potatoes when the market price is very high. So that's why we talk about Department of Consumer Affairs here. Lastly, apart from domestic procurement from farmers, wholesale mandis, import also may be allowed under this fund to stabilize the prices of the commodities, especially for onions, potatoes and pulses. Now, second step under the price stabilization is Pradhan Mantri Annadata Aay Sanrakshan Abhiyan, which is also called as PM Asha. So under this, the scheme was aimed at ensuring remunerative prices to the farmers for their produce. So what does it talk about? It talks about three things. First is price support scheme. So under price support scheme, physical procurement of pulses, oilseeds and copra is done by central agencies. So PSS covers what? Pulses, oilseeds and copra. Second, it talks about price deficiency payment scheme. So under this PDPS, it is proposed to cover all oilseeds for which MSP is notified. So in this, direct payment of the difference, see, oilseeds will be sold in the mandi by the farmer. But if the price falls below MSP, the difference between MSP and the actual price is transferred to the bank account of the farmer. So this also uses DBT. But please note that there is no involvement of physical infrastructure because actual purchase of crops is not done by the government. Only the difference in price is paid to the farmers. Lastly, there is a pilot project under which private procurement and stockist scheme was launched, where a private agency shall procure the commodity at MSP in notified markets. So all these three together is called PM Asha scheme. Then we talk about the structural reforms which the government of India wants to introduce. So as we have seen in the stimulus package as well, when the finance minister announced a stimulus package of 20 lakh crore. So they wanted to reform agriculture and they wanted to give a vision for structural reforms in India. Some news channels even called it a 91 movement for India, where we enhanced our GDP through LPG. So under this, the first is Model Land Leasing Act. So what is this? Currently, states impose varying degree of restrictions on leasing of farmland. So therefore, a farmer gets stuck. He is not able to let it out even if he wants to leave farming. So the idea behind the model law is to allow owners to lease out agricultural land to tenant farmers without any fear of losing it. Then the model law enables tenant farmers and sharecroppers to avail bank credit, crop insurance, disaster relief, etc. See, for example, the tenant will not have the land papers in his or her name. So therefore, they are not able to avail of the proper facilities. So therefore, this law will enable tenant farmers to take loans, take benefits of Fasal Bima Yojana, Kisan scheme, etc. Lastly, it will also allow consolidation of farmland because we'll be able to identify and map effectively that what is the ownership pattern, what is the distribution, etc. Then there will be no ceiling on the amount of land that can be leased out or consolidated. So this is an important change. Before, all the laws of land reforms had some form of ceiling, where 18 acres for wetland and 54 acres for dry land were discussed in your model laws, or what we discussed in 1951 Model Land Reforms Act. But this talks about there will be no ceiling of the amount of land that can be leased out or consolidated. Then under the new law, land can also be leased out for allied activities, which is livestock, animal husbandry, for a maximum period of 5 years. So it does not restrict itself to agriculture. It goes beyond to agriculture and allied activities as well, but for a maximum period of 5 years. Then the Model Act proposes quicker litigation process in case of disputes by suggesting various tribunals, and also talks about dispute settlements through Gram Sabha, Panchayat, Tehsildar, etc. So if we see Gram Sabha outside the jurisdiction of the court, so therefore court is not included. So Gram Sabha, Panchayat and Tehsildar can also take up the disputes. So that is also very important. Now coming to contract farming, which is also one important structural change, as we'll discuss under the stimulus package as well in our second video. First of all, what is this about? Contract farming can be defined as agriculture production carried out according to an agreement between a buyer and a farmer. So if some corporate wants to tie up with a farmer, so that is what we call contract farming, which establishes conditions for production and marketing of a farm product. So in a way we can say the farmer is also getting some guarantees from the contractor or the potential buyer of the products. Then both parties engaged in contract farming can benefit because farmers will have a guaranteed market and also the buyer will have guaranteed supply with the kind of products he wants with the proper inputs controls such as seeds, fertilizers, etc. So if somebody wants organic produce, they can have a contract for organic produce. So this will help both the parties. Lastly, purchasing firms benefit from having a guaranteed supply of agriculture products which meet their specifications. So as we discussed, for example, in organic farming, so KVIC can do a contract or KVIC can partner with various farmers under contract farming, for example. So what is this about? What does the model law say? First of all, setting up of a appropriate and unbiased state level agency called Contract Farming Development and Promotion Authority to carry out the contracts. Then it talks about registering an agreement according to district, block and taluka level for registration of contracts to support the farmers so that there is no ill deeds or there is no scam in this, right? So therefore there's a need for proper registration and agreements. Then next it talks about that contract farming to remain outside the ambit of APMC because otherwise the farmers will not be allowed to directly sell to the buyer. So therefore APMCs have to be bypassed. So therefore contract farming will remain outside the APMC. Then FPOs or farmer producer companies can also participate through contract farming laws. And lastly, providing contract farming facilitation groups at village panchayat level to take quick and need-based decision relating to production, post-production activities of contracted agriculture produce, livestock and its product. So therefore, it is hand-holding that there are facilitation groups to help the farmers and the buyer in case of any dispute or any procedural lapses on the part of the parties. And lastly, catering to a dispute settlement mechanism at the lowest level possible. So that's why we discuss Gram Sabha, Tehsildar, etc. under the provision of the Act. Now coming to the next structural scheme, which is PM Kisan. So under this stream, there's a concept of income support to the farmer. So first of all, it's a central sector scheme with 100% funding from Government of India. Secondly, under the scheme, income support of rupees 6,000 is given per year in 3 equal installments to all the farmers. So previously this was restricted, but now all farmers are covered under PM Kisan. Then cash transfer scheme will come under green box subsidies under WTO. So as we know in WTO, green box have no limit. So, and green box are for environment and for education, etc. So green box is being PM Kisan is under green box, so there will be no obligation for cutting down these subsidies or there will not be any cap on these subsidies. But MSP was part of Amber Box, which created a major issue at WTO negotiations. So Amber Box had both reduction requirements and upper limit as well. So there was a criteria of de minimis under Bali Agreement, which was violated by MSPs. Then Telangana model and Odisha model was the base for this scheme, which is Raitu Bandhu scheme and Kalia scheme, which have already implemented the cash transfer as PM Kisan has been designed. Then we come to the next pillar, which is PM Fasal Bima Yojana. So this is nothing but insurance scheme for crops or income support scheme in case of crop failures. So it aims to provide comprehensive insurance cover for crop loss, which is pre-harvest, post-harvest, in case farmer did not sow seed because of contingency. For example, suppose we have this lockdown now. So there might be some farmers which were not able to get seeds because of the contingency due to the lockdown. So PM Fasal Bima Yojana will even cover farmers which have been affected badly during the times of lockdown as well. Then secondly, premium rates. So there is no capping on the premium and one premium rate on a pan-India basis. So it is, now this is very important, it is 1.5, 2 and 5 for Rabi, Kharif and horticulture. So even horticulture and commercial products are covered, although with a higher premium of 5%. Then there is no upper limit on the government subsidy. So the difference between premium and insurance charges are paid by the farmer. Then losses covered. So what is this about? The losses covered are very vast, which is natural fire, storms, hailstorms, inundation, etc. So post-harvest losses are also covered. In fact, this is an improvement over previous schemes because there is a provision for assessment through drones and real-time assessment of the crop loss as well. So a cluster approach would be adopted under which a group of districts with variable risk profiles will be allotted to an insurance company, because we tend to know that hailstorms particularly affect a particular area. So therefore, an insurance company can bid according to the risk of that area. Lastly, remote sensing technologies, smartphones, drones will be used for quick assessment as we discussed. And also PM Fasal Bima Yojana will be voluntary with KCC instead of earlier mandatory requirement of KCC and PM FBY. So now if you have a KCC, PM FBY becomes voluntary. Then we'll talk about innovation in agriculture and how to promote innovation. So for that, government came up with Agri Innovation Fund. So under this, a system will soon be put in place to scientifically validate, scale up and propagate innovations by Indian Council of Agriculture Research. So this is done through Farmers Innovation Fund. So as part of the system, a center has been established in New Delhi where innovations will be scientifically validated. Then farmers will be allowed to pursue research under the system. And lastly, a rich database of successful innovations exists at the grassroots because of proper involvement of Krishi Vigyan Kendras at the ground level. Then the main intention here is to link farmers and the scientific community for better productivity, research, better sustainability, etc. Now, as part of research initiatives, there is also a format for research on indigenous cows to boost livestock production in India or production of milk, etc. So this is led by Department of Science and Technology. So the agency becomes important. It is done by DST and it is funded by several ministries. Not only DST, it is funded by several ministries. So what are the main themes under this research? There are 5 proposals. First of all, uniqueness of the indigenous cow, prime products which are used for medicine and health, agriculture applications, food and nutrition, and also cow-based utility items. So all 5 themes are being researched upon. Now coming to the last pillar for today, which is Seeds Bill. So there have been introduction of Seeds Bill to empower the farmers better against MNCs and also better sustainability and food security. We need a proper supply and production of seeds which is non-exploitative in nature. So for that, the model Seeds Bill was introduced at the center. So what is this about? All varieties of seeds being sold for the purpose of sowing or planting must be registered except farmers variety. So if a farmer has made them on its own, that is not required to be registered, but if it is sold commercially for purpose of sowing, planting must be registered. So farmers varieties are varieties which have been traditionally cultivated and evolved by farmers themselves. So those are not registered because they are considered as common knowledge, as we can see from the first point. That is part of common knowledge. So seeds produced by farmers other than those for sale under a brand name are also not required to be registered. So if it's a brand, if it is having some commercial value, they need to be registered. Then transgenic varieties of seeds which are developed by modifying the genetic composition of other varieties can be registered only after application obtain a clearance under Environment Protection Act 1986. So this is also important. For example, as we have discussed in Science and Technology about GM seeds. So they need clarification or permission from Environment Protection Act 1986 by the Environment Ministry. Then what are the standards by the central government? The central government will notify minimum limits of germination, genetic and physical purity, seed health for any variety. Additional standards will also be applying for transgenic varieties. So but again, as we discussed, these standards will not apply to seeds produced by farmers. Then it talks about compensation to farmers in case of failure of seeds. So a registered variety of seed fails to perform to expected standards, then the farmer can claim compensation from the producer, dealer or distributor under the Consumer Protection Act 1986. So an important change here is compensation to farmers in case of performance not up to the mark. So under which act? Consumer Protection Act 1986. Then it also talks about offences and penalties. So persons who contravene any provision of the bill and sell seeds which do not conform to specified standards will be punishable up to rupees 25,000 and 1 lakh. And also there is a provision for imprisonment up to 1 year or fine up to 5 lakh rupees for furnishing false information. So please have a look at the comment section. There are some questions there. Please attempt those questions, and also please subscribe and like the videos. Thank you.